All right, good morning. Welcome to the Monterey Bay Nature Journal Club virtual meeting. I'm so excited to see so many new faces. So today is going to be different than what we've been doing for the last 15 weeks or so together. We have people from all over the globe that joins us, and it's been really fun to do nature drilling together. Normally we log on, we do a little, I do an introduction of a topic, and then we all log off and do our own nature drilling in our own backyard, front yard, indoor nature, whatever you have. And then we come back and then we all share what we've learned. So it's a really fun way to expand our nature journaling, not only from our journaling just ourselves, but to share it with other people. And so everyone gets to learn about what's in your backyard. Okay, my name is Melinda Nakagawa, and I live in the Monterey area. And I have a background as a scientist, as a naturalist, and I have done nature journaling for a long time, but it hasn't been until the last recent couple of years that I've really understood how important nature journaling is to help us see more of what's around us. You know, for me, it was just a natural thing that I did by myself. But what I found is doing it with other people really makes it more fun, and it makes my learning more fun, and it helps everyone else learn at the same time. All right, so I'm going to just jump on over here. We have folks from all over California. Welcome, San Diego, San Rafael, Sacramento, up in the Sierra Nevada mountains. Oops, sorry. Oh, we still have, Lisa's here from Monterey. Let's see, some more. Andrea's from Carmichael. Yep, so you get to see some things in Monterey that you don't get to see very often. From Florida, Connie from Florida, first time checking this out. Great, welcome, Connie. I know that I know some urban sketchers, and I haven't done that myself, so I'm going to have to try that. But welcome to nature journaling. Okay, let's see. I'm going to start because we have a short time together. I'm planning till about 11:30, 11:40, and I want to make sure that I give everyone a break in the middle so that we can stop and stretch your legs, go to the bathroom. Normally we wouldn't be on the call straight for this long, so I want to break it up. And so if at any time you have some feedback, keep it in the back of your mind, or let me know after today to let me know how you liked it, and we might do some more of these virtual field trip nature journaling events, and then you guys can maybe lead something if you have a place that you want to share. So with that, I'm going to start out with a quick introduction to tide pools. Let me get to my share screen because some of you may not know what a tide pool is, and you're here anyways. And okay, so here I should have my presentation up here.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, thank you. All right, so this is a photo of one of our tide pools here in Central California at low tide, and you can see there's lots of exposed rocks and shiny water in the pools and lots of grass-looking plants. It's surf grass, and the brown stuff is seaweed. Let me advance my slide. All right, so tide pools are small pools that form in the rocks. So it's usually in rocky coastline. And these pools get exposed when the tide goes out. So when you have low tide, all the rocks are exposed, except these indentations in the rocks hold the water while the ocean water goes out. And at high tide, the water rushes back in and covers all these rocks. So there's a rich variety of organisms that live in tide pools, even though it's really, really difficult to live there. It's an extreme environment, and all of these animals, not just animals, I should say, organisms, because some of them are algae and other things, are adapted. That means that they have characteristics in their body or in their behavior to help them survive these really tough environments. So you can see in this picture the wave crashing and the seaweed poking out of the rocks. I'm just going to go over a few things that some characteristics about tide pools. We have here in California, we have 2 high tides and 2 low tides each day. So, but usually only one of those low tides is during the day. The other one is when it's dark. So here's a map, or excuse me, a screenshot of an app that I have on my phone, the Tides app, and it's showing in Monterey. This was, let's see, on Thursday when I went out to record all of this stuff, this video for you guys. The low tide was at 8:40 a.m. at minus 0.8 feet. And that is minus 0.8 feet below the mean tide, the low tide. So you could see on the graph that that squiggly line shows where the low tide is, and I kind of circled around the time that I was there. And so at low tide, a lot of the pools are exposed, and then the tide is going to rise. So gradually the water will come in and the pools will get deeper, and everyone will get refreshed with cold seawater. And then it goes back up to high tide, and then it'll fluctuate down to low tide. And for that particular day, the second low tide was not very, very low. But I went out at a low tide at about below 1 feet. Okay, so here is the beach that I went to on Thursday, and this is Asilomar, no, it's not Asilomar Beach, it is Point Pinos in Pacific Grove. And I'm going to show a map of where this is in a minute, but we're just doing the Tidepool overview right now. So the upper picture is at high tide at a plus 3.6 feet. Tide. So you can see there's rocks still exposed and there's lots of ocean. Now look down below. This is the same location, same view, slightly different angle, but you can still make out some of the landmarks, like this pointy rock here up on top. You look down here, the pointy rock. See how there's a lot more rocks right here on the bottom picture that are black and they're exposed. And then even in the center of the picture where there was a lot of ocean up on top, it's all rocky down below. So these are the places that we're going to explore today and walk around and see what kind of creatures are there, because they're only visible to the air and sun. They see sunlight, but they're only visible to the air for small parts of the day. Okay, so the extreme life in tide pools. So if you're living in a tide pool, you have to deal with a lot of different characteristics. We're only going to cover just a few physical characteristics. So one is heat and desiccation. So if you are an ocean animal living in cold ocean water and you're suddenly exposed to the sunlight, you're going to get hot and you might overheat and you might dry out. So all of these creatures are able to either tolerate being in the sun, like the seaweed on the right-hand side, this rockweed can be out of the water for hours at a time and then get kind of dry and crispy. But once the water comes up, it gets nice and flexible again. So it comes back alive. It's pretty amazing. Some animals will either close up. Oh, I have another slide here. Some animals will hide in the shade. If you can move, if you're an animal that has the ability to move around in tide pools, then they're going to move into places where there's shade, maybe from seaweed or in the cracks of the rock. If you can't move, some of these animals are sessile, meaning they're stuck. Wherever they landed on the rocks, they're there for good. So they cannot run from the tides, and hopefully they picked a right spot. And what they do is they either close up in a hard shell to keep the moisture in, or close up like this anemone, pulling in its tentacles and keeping in as much moisture as it can until the tide covers it up. Another thing that you need to worry about if you're a tide pool creature is wave action. So the waves are pounding on you all the time. Well, actually, when the water is higher, and you've got to figure out how to hang on. Otherwise, you're going to wash away to sea, and you won't survive, because these animals are adapted to being on a substrate. So that means like a rock or on another seaweed. And if you let go, you're going to float away, kind of like in outer space. You're just going to float away out into the ocean, and hopefully you end up bumping into something that you can grab hold of. But if not, you're toast. So you've got to hang on really tight if you are a tide pool animal or creature. So some creatures do this with sticky tube feet. So like the sea star down below, we have this ochre star has lots and lots of tube feet underneath that hold on with suction, and they hang on really tightly. And sometimes it's hard to even pull off with their hands because they're so strong. Others might have a muscular foot. Think of they're all related to our garden snails. So you know how our garden snails, when you try to pull them off a leaf, they kind of stick to it with suction? Well, the snails in the ocean do the same thing, but they've got a much stronger foot that they can stick with. So these pictures up above are animals called limpets and an abalone, and they stick really hard onto the rocks with their foot. Others, like this mussels down below, they will attach with like a tether that they create, and they attach these, they're called byssal threads, and they're flexible and stretchy, and they put a bunch of them out and they stick to the rocks. So they're tethered to the rocks so that they don't wash away, because they need to hang on there so that they can do their work and filter feed. All right, and one last thing I want to go over with surviving in a tide pool is you can't get caught. There are animals that are here that are going to eat you, like the seagull here, trying to eat the sea star. I was tide pooling one day and saw this gull sitting there with this sea star hanging out of its mouth, trying to swallow it. Other animals are not so lucky. They're smaller and might get swallowed or picked out or eaten by other animals, birds and land animals. So you've got to have either a tough covering or camouflage so that you're not seen. Maybe you hide, so like this crab down below, so no one can get you from inside a crack. And maybe you have armor, body armor, like this sea urchin down below. It's really spiny, so you're deterring predators, or you hide in a hole. All right, and one last thing about tide pools is a word from ecology called tidal zonation. It just means zones of the rocks that we'll see. And these are just patterns of how these animals and plant organisms are distributed in the tide pool. So this photograph that I took is of a rock, and it's kind of a vertical, you could see it's a vertical cliff face. And up on top, there's a bunch of mussels. And then down below, it's like the mussels aren't down on the sides, but there's a little sea star there. I'll tell you, this sea star eats the mussels. So the mussels are going to try to stay up on top where they can be avoiding these sea stars who don't like to come out of the water very often. Then you have another band of like brown and pink, different kinds of algae, and there's some long ones hanging down. And then down below, notice all the green circles. These are green sea anemones, so they need a little bit more water, so they're going to be down below. Let's see. And so you'll see at the top, the highest sections are the highest tide. That's where it's exposed more times than down low at the lowest tide. These places, these pools are only exposed at really, really low tides. So these animals are used to being covered with water almost all the time. And the animals up on top can be exposed for long periods of time. They have great adaptations. They have, superpowers to withstand all kinds of threats. So we're gonna look for some zone patterns in our tide pooling experience. All right, so I know that there are some of you here who are new to nature journaling, so I'm just going to do a few slides to talk about what nature journaling is. And nature journaling is going out into nature or looking at something of nature and observing and recording what we see and what we think and what we observe, what's inspired in us. We write those in a journal using words, pictures, and numbers. And so here's just an example of one of my pages with eucalyptus. So you'll see there's a picture, there's a bunch of words, and there's some numbers, and that is conveying, putting down my thoughts, the things that are in my head, onto the page so that I can see them. So what goes on a page? Well, today I'm going to walk you through the process. So first we have things that are called metadata, and that's just a fancy word that means the information about the data we're collecting, today, the information, like the date, the time, the location. You might put the weather, the moon phase. Some people go all out and put a lot of information, but you can keep it simple. I think the most important thing, if you put the date, the time, and the location, that those are three good ones to start with. You could put a title so you know what you're looking at, and then we're going to start putting our observations, what we see, and what questions come up, and then maybe making some connections. So here are three kind of sentence starters that you can use to help you know what to put in your journal. I notice, and then you can fill in the blanks, and that's I'm talking about the observations. What are you seeing? And then I wonder, are the questions. Like, what questions come up when you're looking at this thing? And you don't need to filter your questions of like, are these smart questions or dumb questions? Because they're not. Any questions that pops up into your mind is perfect for your nature journal. And you don't have to find the answer to it either, because what we're trying to do is dig into all those questions, put as many questions down, because the really cool question is going to be like not the first or the second question, but maybe later on down the line. Another sentence starter is, it reminds me of. And this is great because sometimes something we see in nature is very similar to something else in our lives, and writing that in our nature journal creates connection. It's going to help us remember this experience better. And so why should we keep a nature journal? Well, when we keep a nature journal, it helps to deepen our knowledge of nature, right? When we go out in nature, we're observing with the intention of looking more carefully, so that we're going to learn more about nature, right? We learn more when we observe it directly ourselves than any book can teach you. So this is a really cool way of learning. It also improves the way that we view things, our observational skills, our ability to see, to hear, to sense, to touch, to feel. It also, that's sensory awareness as well. It also improves our memory. So it's well known that the more senses you use to integrate some information, you're going to remember it better, right? So when we see something, we say it out loud, we write it, we draw it. That's going to help you remember it. And that's actually the technique I used all through college and graduate school to learn what the teachers were teaching me, is not just listening to the lecture, but using all my senses. Being in nature has a myriad of positive health benefits. I'm not going to go over them all, but just quickly, when I teach students about nature journaling, they all say how calming and relaxed they feel when they do this. When we are looking at nature and being present with something that's alive, it just really calms our nervous system, and it gets us outside. We get some sun, we move our bodies. We need the sunlight for vitamin D, and that's something that's really critical for our healthy functioning. It also inspires creativity, right? There's some research that shows that nature and being in nature really boosts your creativity. So, if you want to be creative, not just with drawing, but with all aspects of our life. And finally, it builds a relationship with nature. So when you are observing something in nature, you can't help but become more close to it. So I followed a family of bluebirds in my backyard, and nature journaled it several times throughout the season, and I became really close to it. And now I know that specific family. I know the 3 chicks that are flying around are from that nest. So you're developing just a nice connection with the world around you. And if you are brand new to nature journaling, welcome. This is a really great community. I think other people who have been here can attest that this is a really fun and low pressure place to be. And if you're apprehensive or nervous about drawing or sharing or anything, just take a breath and just be here. Just take in what you can and enjoy the ride. And if you're interested in getting a jump start on nature journaling, learning some basics and asking questions that maybe you're afraid to in a bigger group, come join me. I have another course that's starting in July, and you can go to my website, sparkinnature.com/classes, or you can send me an email, sparkinnature@gmail.com. And if you're concerned about finances, partial scholarships are available, so please check it out. Contact me if you want to learn about how to get started. And it doesn't take long. I've had some students go through my 6-week class, and they're just, their nature journaling has skyrocketed. Okay. Here's my contact website, email. All of the Sundays are donation based. So all of the time that I put into it, I'm not, charging a fee. But if you like what you see and you're able to help support me in this work so I can continue to do more free Sundays, I welcome your donations, and you can reach me through paypal.me/alpacamel. I'm also on Venmo. You can also donate to me from my website as well. All right. Okay, I think we're done with that slideshow. We are going to start. Does anyone have any pressing questions? No. Okay, so for those of you who just logged on, welcome. We are just about to do a virtual field trip to some tide pools in my neck of the woods in Monterey County, in a town called Pacific Grove. I think some of you are here. Let's see. All right, I'm going to share my slideshow. Start from the beginning. Okay. So welcome. We are going to, this is a couple of photos of Pacific Grove with a rocky coastline and lots of really great seaside flowers. And we are in Monterey Bay. I'm just going to stop here for a moment. So see this C shape? This is Monterey Bay. It's in the center of California. Monterey is down below. Where this red dot is Point Pinos, and I'm going to zoom into that location. All right, so right on the point is Point Pinos, and right at the tip is Point Pinos. And what we're going to do is we're going to walk, oh, sorry about that, we're going to walk down this sandy area, and we're going to walk out onto the rocks and see how it's all rocky and dark. That's where the seaweed is. So we're gonna, and the tide pools are. So we're gonna walk, and we're gonna cross over this plateau of ice plant and go over to this region over here, take a look at some of the tide pools, and then over to the right. And you can see there's a lot more area to cover, but I only had a little bit of time to do this. But we're gonna see some really great stuff anyways. All right. And this is part of the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. And there are, I think, 33 sanctuaries in our country. So most of the California coastline is protected. So all of these animals can grow safely, and many, many people can come and enjoy the bounty that's here. So I'm going to share some tide pool tips as we're going through. So if you decide to come back or come out with me live sometime, that would be really fun. So tide pool tip number 1, wear sturdy shoes, boots, or shoes, because look at all the seaweed on the rocks. Well, if you've never seen seaweed in the wild, it's slippery and slimy. So you want to make sure that you have good grip when you're going out there, because I'm sure you don't want to be slipping and falling into the tide pools when you're nature journaling. So you can see this is a pretty wide area, lots of rocks, and you can already see the zones, right? All the dark is the zones. Another tide pool tip, bring a small journal or a waterproof notebook. So if we were doing this live and in person and really going out into the tide pools, I would take a small notebook, and then or some index cards. There's also waterproof notebooks that you can use and do your nature journaling in that. But today we're going to have our full nature journal because you're at home, the comfort of your dry home, and we can journal on anything you want. And so you'll notice the sand at this particular beach. I'm going to do a little close up. This may not look like the sand that you're used to going to sit and hang out at the beach if you do go to the beach. This one's a very shelly beach. My daughter doesn't like to walk here barefoot because you can imagine it's pretty pokey. But that just shows you what animals live here, right? All of those different shells are the empty shells of the living creatures. So here we have some hermit crabs. And hermit crabs are actually living in snail shells. So we might actually have some snails in here too. Can you see the hermit crab walking around in the black shell with the little orange and white? So hermit crabs don't make their own shell. So they have to steal a shell that's empty, and they use it as protection. So here, I'm going to pause this here. All right, so everyone get your nature journals out, and at the top of the page, you're gonna write today's date. Today is June 28th, 2020. And I think while I'm doing that, I'm going to change my screen so that you can see my, my camera. Hold on one second. Let's see, video. Oops. Oh, I've got to plug it in. So while you're waiting, why don't you go ahead and take your pencil and see if you can like do a gesture sketch. Gently make this circle shape of the snail, and see if, there we go. Hold on one second. Okay. All right, can everyone see my notebook? Okay.
Yes.
All right, I'm gonna get my pencil and I'm just going to, you don't have to do what I do, but I'm giving you an idea of showing you how I do it so that if you like, you can follow along. All right, so today I'm gonna put today's date. Let me get a pen. It's the right pen, okay. Today's date is Sunday, 6/28/20, and we're doing a virtual nature journaling tide pools. All right. Okay, and let's see, I think the first stop, oh, I didn't put the weather. I forgot to take the temperature. I think it was, let me see if I took notes in my journal. I did. The temperature, so if you want to write this, you can say the temperature was about 60 degrees and it was overcast. And oh, because it's low, I put that the low tide is at minus 0.8 at 8:40 a.m. And then we'll say the time that we're there was between 8 and 9:45. So maybe you can put in parentheses, you could say video was taken. Right, normally we would put the time that we're actually outside doing our nature journaling, but we'll just do it this way. And then I think what I might do is maybe leave a little space up on top I want to put a map of that first map of where we walked. So I'm just going to leave a little space here so I don't write in it. You can do the same. I'll have pictures. I can post a picture of that later. Or you don't have to do that. You can just put the title there, maybe a big title. And I think I'm going to start with the hermit crab. And so I'll just so a lot of times with tide pooling, I don't have time to very carefully draw. So we're going to do a lot of gesture sketches today. So for those of you who are new, they're just really quick drawings, like 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 minute sketches. And we're going to take our pencil and just really quickly kind of give us a sense of, with light lines, like kind of draw in that circle shape. Oh, you might not be able to, I'm going to do mine darker so you can see. All right, he kind of bulbs out a little bit more on top. It's not quite circular. And then there's a spiral. See that spiral? I'm going to see if I can capture that in here. I'm going to look at the center of the spiral. So the center of the spiral looks like it's about here. So I'm going to, as I'm looking at the picture, I'm going to be drawing. So this is actually like a modified contour drawing, right? How many of you have done that with me or done it in art class? So I'm just doing some light sketchy lines and kind of draw around. And then it's really dark in here. And oh, this is the little hermit crab sticking out. So he kind of, can't see all of him, but he's got like one leg maybe. I'm not sure. Maybe another one right here. And ooh, I noticed something, a drop of water. Do you see this water droplet? Oh, this is cool. Even has a shadow from that photograph. And then some lines on the outside. Oh, it's this particular moment, it's casting a cool shadow. So I think maybe I will also kind of outline this dark shadow here. All right. And if I don't have watercolors with me, I will just do it by pencil and then maybe write with words like this is black so that I could color it later when I get home. And then I might say there's this area is kind of a brown orange. Or if you have color pencils right now, you can go ahead and color it in a little. And it's dark here, and then the shadow. All right, so that's my hermit crab, and I'm going to label him. I'm going to put hermit crab. And then if you don't know anything about what you're seeing, don't worry about it. You're going to draw what you see and then take some notes, and then you can look it up in a field guide. And this is, you know, a great way to learn. Like, I can go through and tell you everything. I'm going to give you some names, but if I told you what everything was, that isn't necessarily going to plant that memory into your head. So, you know, just observing as much as you can and taking notes. I think I am going to add some color. So I'm just, let's say that I had my little mini kit and I was able to do some sketching and add some color. Sometimes I'm able to do this in the field too. Tide pooling is a little tricky. So, all right, there. Oh, and I've got the shadow. All right. Okay, I use a water brush, and this is just a brush with a water reservoir, and then I just squeeze it, and get the paint out, and I can add some more color. I'm gonna see if I can grab some, maybe some of this orangey brown, and just add a little bit here. Okay. All right, I think I'm good with, oh, I gotta get the legs. What color are the legs? They're kind of a gray, maybe a slightly greenish gray. All right, there's my hermit crab. Okay, then we're gonna move on to our next adventure. Oh, so when you're doing this, ask yourself, what do you notice? You know, what do you wonder? Like, I noticed that there were chips in the shell. Notice the sound. Oh, can you hear the sound? Wait, let me make
No.
sure. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna
And
stop.
also, we had a question
Yeah.
from Doug about the type of rocks in the tide pools.
Yes, there are different kinds of sedimentary rocks that are all in conglomerates that are here in Monterey County. I don't know exactly what they're made of, but there are some granite-like rocks and sandstone-like rocks. We do have the Monterey Formation and Carmel Formation, so I don't know specifically on each individual rock, but those are, you can look that up and find out more about the geology of this area. I need to reshare my screen again because I need to share sound. Okay, so going back to I wonder, you know, I might put like, I notice there's chips in the shell. Okay, and maybe the sounds. You know, when we're at the tide pool, like, do you hear the wind? Do you feel the wind? And here, this is a huge expanse here of rocks. So it's a little bit tricky to walk out if you have some mobility issues, but you don't have to worry about that today because I'm going to walk out there for you. And fellow Nature Journal Club member Cindy came out with us, and my daughter came to help in exploring and looking for different creatures. So one of the first things we saw in the high tide areas is seaweed. And this seaweed is called nori. If anyone's had sushi, you've had that black stuff that's wrapped around the rice. Well, this is what it's made from. And nori is actually green. And when it gets dried, it turns black. And so it's really, really resilient. It's able to get dried up and then get flexible again. So it's super thin. I can't remember, I can't tell if you were able to see, but when I was holding the nori, you can tell it's really thin. You can almost see through it. So here's another tide pool tip. Look before you step. So when we're walking around, you'll notice that a lot of these rocks are covered with seaweed. If you take one step on that nori, without kind of testing your footing, you could slip. So just want to watch out when you're walking around on the tide pools. So you can see there's a assortment of different colors. We have red, green, and brown algae. And you can see a lot of it looks kind of dark purple or brown. It's a lot of the reds, the red algae that are covering the rocks. And they're usually the ones that are on the higher areas. They're able to withstand being out of water more than the others. The brown algae, the kelps, are further down in the water column. So you'll see as you're looking out, you'll see the dark lines on the face of that rock. There's our tidal zonation. So you can tell where, here's another great photo too. You can tell where the water line is. Take a look at this, right? So isn't that funny that right above this line, there are no clumps of seaweed, but right below it, it's thick with seaweed. There's tons of seaweed. And down below, there's another line here with this, I think this is a rockweed. It's a different color and it's stringy and hangs down. So these guys, even if you don't know anything about seaweed, phycology is the study of seaweed, or biology, from what I've told you, that the tide goes in and out. So that means that the water line where I'm standing, this is probably about 4 feet high, the water covers this. So, and the water covers this more frequently than it covers this area. And the water covers this bottom part more frequently than this area. So you can see already from your observations, if we were able to walk up to that rock up close and we drew a picture of each of these seaweeds, you would start to understand what kind of life each seaweed has. And while I'm talking, feel free to sketch, practice your gesture sketches, the quick sketches. We're gonna stop periodically specifically to draw a few things, but mostly this is gonna be a virtual tour so that you can get a sense of what's going on, and you can come back to this video again and draw from it another time. Okay, and you'll see all across the way. Oh, we're gonna stop right here now. Okay, we're gonna stop for just a few minutes. Maybe we'll do like a 5-minute sketch. So I'm gonna set my timer here, and we're gonna do a quick landscape. Okay, so we're gonna do a mini landscape, and maybe I'm gonna do my mini landscape up on top. Maybe I'll do it up here. Let's see if I can get comfortable. All right, so the cool thing about mini landscapes is that you're not committing to an entire page of drawing 5,000 little rocks. You can draw just a tiny box to convey what you see. So when we go tide pooling, this is one of the views, and to capture that, you can make a bounding box, which I've done on my page. And I love doing these boxes because it keeps me from drawing too much. Right? It keeps me in that box. So what I'm going to do is think about, like, what do I want to show? Do I want to show the whole view, or do I want to show part of the view? I think I like to show some of this wet, dark rock on the left and the trees in the background, and then this water and the dry rocks in the front. So I think I'm going to maybe show most of it. So instead of, this is the old me before learning some techniques, would have just maybe started drawing these rocks one by one. Well, what I know now is that's going to take forever. And then how many of you have started to draw something in detail and found out that it was like the wrong proportions, right? So what I like to do is just like really lightly with my pencil, I'm going to kind of outline, here's the tops of the dry rocks here. And then it kind of comes down and in, and then following the water line out and around the base of those rocks in the back, and then going out to sea. And then up above, I'm going to follow the tops of the rocks and see how the rock, you know, the lines of the shapes of the rocks are much smaller because it's far away. So I'm going to make squiggly lines. Maybe I'm going to drop down here, do the dark rocks. And then there's another line here of the road and the sand. So I'll make another line that's kind of straight where the cars are. And these trees, which are really kind of cool in our area. I don't know if you can tell, but they're angled diagonally. See how they're like sloping down? So sometimes wind shapes the trees. So if the trees were angled towards the left of my page, what direction do you think the wind might be coming? It's coming from this direction, right? The wind is blowing the tops of these cypress trees. So the cypress trees are kind of, see how they're kind of sticking out on the left, but they're smooth on the right. So zigzag. All right, so there's some cypress trees. And then I have some green grass over here. It's not grass, it's actually ice plant. And then maybe I'm gonna do some dry rocks. Just make some like geometric boxes. They're like rocks that are stacked on top of each other. All right. And you know, the way that I look at this is like, I'm not here to draw every rock perfectly. The intention of this drawing, this is the big thing, is like I've discovered, like if you have an intention, if you know what you're going to draw, that's going to help you with how to draw it. So if I knew that I wanted to draw the specific rock formation, then I might be more careful with how I do these rocks. But the purpose of this is just to show the landscape. So I'm going to be a little bit more loose about what's going on here. Water line. All right, and there's some rocks sticking up. Here's some sand showing in here. Okay, all right. So for my sketch, I might just keep it like that. If I only had 5 minutes, let's see, I have like 30 seconds. So I don't have time to add any color. So I'm just gonna keep it this way. And maybe I might point out, these are wind swept cypress trees, because that's what I notice. I also, what else do I notice? I notice, oh, there's a neat line. I didn't draw it in my picture, but notice this line right here, this rock in the rock formation. There's like a layer of this other kind of rock that's showing through. So that's kind of cool. If I was actually at this place, I might walk over to that. That would be a really cool picture. So then I might like do a circle and zoom in, and then maybe in my notebook, you know, I would do a circle and I would do a close-up of what that rock intrusion looks like. Like, I don't know, because I can't see it very well, but that's an idea, right? So that you can like zoom in, and this is like the rock close-up. I think we might get another view later on in our tour. So, all right, so we are going to pick up our books and we're going to turn around. We're going to walk on because we need to get out to the low tide area to look for some cool creatures. So we're going to look into.
Melinda,
Yeah.
Melinda, before you do that, we had a request to show your sketch big one time.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, sure. Let me get back to where I'm seeing myself. In Zoom. How come this is not working? Okay, I'm gonna hold it up. No, that's not gonna work. I'm gonna make it lower. All right, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, so as you can tell, it doesn't have a whole lot of detail, and it doesn't look exactly like the photograph, because if I wanted it to look exactly like the photograph, I would take the photo, print it, and put it in my nature journal, right? The purpose is like, I want to be able to see what I'm seeing and just give a general gesture of what's going on. So that's why that's there. Okay, so moving on. We're looking in this crack. And what do we see? It's a little crab. So good things to look in the tide pools are the cracks in the boulders, and we're going to see some more crabs too when we go in a little bit later. And down below, there's all of these pools. See, there's still water covering them, so they're not completely exposed. But see all those round little circles? Those are all snails and hermit crabs. Oh, wait.
Melinda, we're not seeing your close-up, the share screen.
No, you're not seeing the share screen.
I can see it.
Oh, whoops. Oh, you know what it is? Okay, so when you go to the shared screen, go to the view options. And you're going to drop down. There's a drop-down menu that says side-by-side mode. And if you click side-by-side mode, you should be able to see both of my shared screens, both like this one with my hand and then the other one with the video. And there is a slider bar that shows up in between those two videos. You can slide it back and forth and make the video bigger for now. These guys are super shy. They can sense motion. I don't know why he came out. He maybe was blind, but he came out, and so I stood really, really still. Because we don't normally get to see him full out like this. So see how he's kind of compressed? He's flat from top and bottom, and he has all of his like kind of reddish colored legs. Oh, I moved, and so he got really scared and hid. So here's a photo of the little guy. Moving on, there are some other hermit crabs in here. And all the black shells, like the hermit crab that I drew, that shell was from a tegula, a black turban snail. So after the snail dies and leaves the shell, the hermit crabs come and take them, because hermit crabs don't have a hard outer body shell, and they have to have protection.
Look at all the barnacles on the pipe.
All these little dots are barnacles. This is another creature that lives in the tide pools. Oh, whoops, that went a little fast.
Say the name of that black, that creates that black shell again.
Black
creature.
turban, Turban.
Thank you.
Black turban, and actually where I stopped the video, this is a brown turban. So there's two kinds, the brown turban and the black turban snails. And when the snails are alive, you can't tell if it's a snail or hermit crab until you pick it up or watch it move. So if you're in the tide pool and you pick it up and put it on your wet hand, the hermit crab will come out and start walking. Or if you turn it over, you could see the sticky foot of the snail. Then you know there's a snail in there. So even after these animals die, their body parts get used by other animals. So nothing is wasted in nature. Everything is used. And every inch of the tide pool is taken. The real estate is, pretty popular here. So right here, I'm showing all of these little dots on that pipe are other creatures called barnacles. Different ones. These pink ones are barnacles. These little ones are barnacles. This one here with a dome shell is called a limpet. We're going to see some more of these, so we're just going to move on. So Emily found a crab molt. This is the shell of a crab. So crabs have hard armor, and they have to shed the skin in order to grow. So this is just the outside, like a snake, right? A snake sheds its skin, lizards shed their skin. This is a crab that shed its skin. So here's some more of that rock formation, and you can see we have some avian friends, and all that white stuff on the rock is guano from the birds. So I've climbed up onto one of these rocks so that we can get a better view.
Here.
It's covered with invasive ice plant up here.
Oh, I smell the sea air.
Ah, the sea air smells really nice up here. And when you look down, you can tell like the areas that are probably covered with water when the tide is high. All those zones. And so where I'm standing up here doesn't really get wet. So we don't have any
So
sea
we're on
creatures.
top of this rocky plateau now.
And I went over the plateau and down the backside to some more boulders and another beach full of shells. And we're headed over to some more tide pools. This area is farther out to sea and is probably covered with more water than up closer to shore. And so see that green stuff in the distance? I'm going to pause this for a moment. All of this stuff in the back. See what color it is? It's very different from all the stuff in the foreground. So that stuff is actually a flowering plant. It's not a seaweed, but it lives in the ocean. It's called eelgrass. And eelgrass signifies an area that's covered most of the time with water.
Alright,
So
here we are in a little area with lots of pools, lots of boulders covered with seaweed. I'm going to show you something I found here. Really interesting little guy. Let's see if I can get him in the screen. So this is a kind of green algae.
can you hear the video? Can someone show me a thumbs up on your screen? Just hold your thumb up if you can hear the video. Okay, just checking.
Feels soft and squishy. Little tiny moss ball. Surrounded by lots of other kinds of algae.
So this is called a green pincushion algae, a Cladophora, and it's mixed in with the other reds and brown algae around it. So I wanted to say that the eelgrass in the distance, it kind of shows us where the low tide line is. And this area is not exposed very often. It's only at really low tides like today. So if we were able to walk over there, we'd see that it looks like green hair. It's just really pretty. So in these cracks, you could see there's lots of creatures that are hiding. The
shore crab hiding in the cracks. Oh wait, there's two.
So this is a lined shore crab. This is all red seaweed, different kinds of red seaweeds. Oh, another shore crab. All right, so searching in the cracks, animals are going to be hiding from predators and they're going to stay cooler and wetter.
Snails in the crack. Turpin snails.
And here's a limpet, a rough limpet. So it's a type of snail, just like abalone, and they're hunkered down on the rock. So it's really hard to pull them off. They've got a really strong muscular foot.
Some more limpets.
And this is a chitin, this animal right here. It's also got a muscular foot. It has plates on the back. That's why it has these kind of stripy marks. And its foot is showing around the edges a little bit. So you'll be able to watch this video and stop it wherever you want and draw some more pictures and at your own time. But we're just going to go through this overview. We're doing some gesture sketches quickly as this is going. I think the next stopping point will go to, let's see, we will go to a crab that's coming up. And so you can see this little thing here with the tiny shells attached. Those are anemones. And we're going to see an open one in a little bit, but I wanted you to kind of notice this little squishy creature with lots of shells covering it. Okay, so here was a crab that crawled onto Emily. They don't normally do this, but he was kind of cute. He crawled out and just sat really still. So I thought maybe we'd stop just for a moment and should we try a quick gesture sketch of this shore crab? So I'm gonna block out the shape of the shell, and he's kind of got a rectangle body. And then kind of blocking in the legs. I'm not doing really hard lines. I'm doing kind of quick pencil ovals for that first segment that comes out of the body that's wider than the others. And then his claws in front are much fatter than the other legs he's got. And he's got a squared off head, and his eyes are right here in the corners. And then maybe if I don't have time, because sometimes these crabs, when you're trying to draw them, they're going to run away. And so you may only get a really quick glance. So maybe if I was watching him, I'd count his legs and go, okay, he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 legs and 1 big claw on each side. You know, and that maybe that's all you get to do, and say he's got 8 legs, 2 claws. Shore crab. I might say they are hiding in the cracks of rock. All right, and then maybe this is all I get to do because we saw something else that was pretty spectacular. These got kind of lines. Okay, all right. So here's my crab. We're moving on. Oh, here's some closed anemones and open ones. I know it's hard to make them out, but here's an open one. So when they're open, these creatures are attached to the rock, and so they can't move. These ones can't move around, so they're going to just close up when the tide goes out. This one I took underwater with my phone, so you can see what it looks like. See, the center is where the mouth is, and so these animals are eating dead things that float by. All right, another tip. Look under rock ledges. So see this rock over here on the left-hand side, closer up the rock. See where it's dark and shady underneath? Oh, it's nice and moist and cool. So on a day where the sun is coming out, this is a good place to hide if you are a sea creature. So just a quick video of what's underneath this rock. Look at that. All of these mussels. There's lots of turban snails. On top, there's lots of seaweed. So real estate is at a premium, so all surfaces are covered. So even this area here that doesn't look like anything's living on it is actually is either covered with tiny, tiny limpets, like here. That's my finger. You can see how tiny these limpets are. I'm going to go back. That was really cool. All right, see that? Each of these little circles, these star-shaped creatures, these are little limpets, rough limpets. And then these ones here are barnacles. So all of these sea creatures. So that might be something that you draw, like you put your finger next to it if you don't have a ruler, to get a sense of scale and show what that might be. All right, and you can see there's different colors of seaweed here. This iridescent seaweed up on top is that green kind of fluffy stuff. And there's some other creatures. So this spot was really prolific with these creatures. These are called sea stars or bat stars. And you can see that, can you see the tiny tube feet that are sticking out the edges? The tips, they're moving around. And they use it to cling to surfaces as they move. So they've got rows and rows of tube feet underneath. And I'm sorry I don't have a picture of underneath, but if we were at the tide pool, you could turn it over and you can see that on those 5 arms, there's 5 rows of tube feet underneath that help it move around. All right, some more. This is a really deep pool here with some surf grass. And this is another bat star. So we just saw an orange bat star. This one is one that's red with kind of peach colored spots on it. So bat stars come in all different colors and they're quite beautiful. Can you see these like overlapping scales that are all over the top, all over the body? This is a closed sea anemone. Looks like a big grapefruit with an indentation. And so if you explore in these tide pools, you don't have to go very far out and you'll find all different kinds of cool things. So I think the next thing that's coming up, we're going to look a little bit closer in underneath. Okay, here we go.
So this plastic boat caught my eye. And when I came over, I noticed somebody else here. Not only that, one more. Over there.
So these were 2 nudibranchs, or sea slugs, that I found in the tide pools. And these guys are usually attached to seaweed or some rock or some other substrate, but they were floating freely on the surface of the water, washing back and forth. So Emily and I were going to rescue them and put them on a seaweed in a nice hiding spot. But before we did that, we put them in our container so we can take a couple of photos and some video so that you can get a chance to see who these guys are. So here's a cool photo. I think I'm going to pause it on, actually, I'm going to let it go a little bit more because there's a cool video. Okay, so watch the sea slug move. Oops. Right here. So on the front of the sea slug are these 2 horns called rhinophores, and they use them to sense the water around them. See, just like snails, they've got these little horns. And then in the back, this is their gills, this is where they breathe. So when he's disturbed, when I picked him up, he kind of scrunched up all together and he sucked in his gills. But now that he's relaxed, he's starting to let the gills come out. So it's kind of neat to see nudibranchs. So sometimes when we just watch nature for a little while, they'll relax and they'll show us some interesting characteristics and aspects. And this also has gills. See these gills here? And the 2 rhinophores in front. So I'm going to stop it at this lemony colored nudibranch. Sorry. Just trying to find the right spot here. All right, we're going to take a quick break. If you don't need a break and you just want to sit and sketch something, I'm going to leave it. Uh-oh, I'm going backwards. I'm going to leave it on the nudibranch, and you can draw the nudibranch. And so we'll come back in maybe another 5 minutes if you want to get up and stand up and stretch. Go use the bathroom, get a cup of water. Here we go. Whatever you want to do, feel free. And if you have any quick questions, you can feel free to ask. I'm going to stay right here.
Hey, Melinda, we got a question from some new folks. We've got Matthew and Christina.
Sure.
Something that we get frequently, which is the supplies to use.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm looking for that one. Was that recorded? Is there a
link? Yeah, it was called, I'll have to look it up, but it was what to put in your kit. But let me just stop my video so that you can see me.
Okay.
And then I'll be right on here.
Because I could look it up. I'm looking and I can't remember which month. I'm not seeing it.
Let's see.
I just wanted to make sure it actually exists as a.
I did record it, and that one might be one that I think I uploaded as a YouTube video. I may not have posted the link, but if you can, Heather, if you can make a note of that and remind me later, that would be super helpful. I'm going to go back to the gallery view. Okay, so I'm trying to find my chat here. So who was it that asked the question?
Sorry, I was on another screen. It was some new folks that we've got, and I have a feeling there's other people, Matthew and Christina.
Yeah. All right. My chat just went away. I don't know why that happened.
I was just starting to look on YouTube to see if I could find it and post it in there, but
I may not have posted it. So why don't you take a note, and then I'll make sure that I find that for you. But basically the supplies, all you need is a journal and a pencil. That's all you need. So my philosophy is you don't have to have anything fancy. If you're starting, start with a journal, something that's not too big, not too small. I use one that's about 7. This is 7 by 10, and it's the perfect size for me because it's big enough that I can get a lot of. It's big enough that I can get a lot of stuff in it, but it's small enough that I'll put it in my messenger bag and take it with me wherever I go. So, because you never know when you're going to want to draw something in your nature journal. That's always happened to me. If I can't take my journal, I have a pocket notebook. Or actually, I did this yesterday. I'll hold it up. Yesterday, I went for a hike in Carmel Valley. I took my daughter to Big Sur, and then on my way home, I stopped in a place to go for a hike, and I have just a pad of paper. This is, I don't know, this is like cardstock. It doesn't have to be cardstock. I have one with watercolor paper. And then I just make sketches and take notes in here. So I write down what I see. I do little sketches of things so I can remember them. And then I can come back and draw things by memory, or I can tape this into my nature journal. So one of the things that I do in the introductory class is teach you how to do a mind's eye exercise where you're observing something in nature and recording it into your memory, into your mind's eye, so that when you come to draw it on paper later, you're able to remember as much as possible. So that's what I do when I'm out and I can't take my book with me because I was walking my dog and I have my binoculars because I was bird watching, and even this was a little, can be a little too much. So I have it small so I can put it in my pocket. I like to use mechanical pencil and a waterproof black marker, fine tip marker, and I draw with that, and then I add watercolor washes to my nature journal sketches. And not all the time, I have watercolor. Sometimes it's just, pencil. I don't always finish my pages. And that's the other thing is, like, you don't have to finish everything in your nature journal. If you start to draw something and it goes awry and you're like, I don't really like the way this looks, just move on to another section, right? Don't worry about erasing, just move on. Because the big thing about the nature journal is our focus is not making a pretty drawing. That could be the outcome, but if we focus on making a pretty drawing, then it prevents us from really seeing what we see in nature. So if we focus on the nature journal as, oh, this is a tool for me to record what I'm seeing in nature, and the more that you do this and the more that you practice drawing, your pictures will get better. It just is a side effect of nature journaling, if you keep doing this. So that's something that we work on Sundays, just by creating a community, and we, at least once a month, you come together or once a week, and we're journaling together because it makes it more fun, right? And then there are some who wanted the friendly pressure of having a group, right? Because maybe on your own, you're not motivated to nature journal, but if you come to this group, everyone is doing it together, so you might be more motivated. So that's another way to get some nature journal time under your belt, because it's about improving drawing skills is about quantity. Pencil miles. John Muir Laws, who many of you know, who teaches nature journaling in the Bay Area, talks about pencil miles. It's about how many lines are you making on your page. The more pencil miles you make, the better your drawings are going to be, the better your observations are. And the more words you put on the page, this is the other key, the more words you put on the page, the less likely you're going to feel like it has to be a good drawing. So notice how on my page, I started to put words and arrows and lines right away, because if I left it like that hermit crab, at first I didn't like the way it turned out. And if I left it with just the picture, I would have kept thinking it wasn't good. And I started to put words on it right away, so it made less importance about the pretty picture. And the other thing is, if you're new to drawing, just you're on a journey, right? So you're drawing today, tomorrow is going to be better than it is today, right? So each day that you do this, it's going to feel a little bit easier. It's going to get better. I don't know if that was helpful to anyone. Okay, let me see how much time we have. All right, so I think we are going to jump ahead. Oh, I'm going to share my screen again. Actually, change my video. And mirror. Okay. All right. All right. So cool nudibranchs. So these pictures and stills will be here so that you can draw some more cool things. Oh, here's a neat thing. So I found this triangle. Does anyone know what this is? Anyone care to guess? You can unmute and guess.
Looks like part of a sea star.
Yeah. Yeah, is that Ivea?
Yes.
Hi. Oh, I can't see everybody, so it's nice to hear your voice. Yes. So I looked, so remember one of my tips, look underneath rocks, right? Under the underhangs. So I leaned down really low, looked, and I saw a little orange thing. So I carefully pulled it out, thinking I was going to pull out a bat star. But what I found was a triangle bat star. And what this is, so sea stars are really cool. So they can regrow limbs. Okay, so if they get an arm broken off or eaten off, they can regrow that arm as long as the central disc, that's the central area, is intact. They can regrow arms. So even if someone took the sea star and cut it in half, which probably would happen because they usually have 5 arms. So maybe there's a 2-armed sea star somewhere, or maybe they got eaten. But the central disc is still intact. So this is going to regrow some more arms. It's still alive. Right, here's the row of tube feet underneath that are going to pop out. It just kind of sunk it in when I picked it up. And its stomach is right in the center. So as long as that's intact, it's going to grow. So I just thought that was, really remarkable to see that in nature. And you can see where it's like been chewed off. I don't know if someone tore it, but I thought that was really cool. All right.
I find like the dried ones that are like intact, did they just die because they were old?
The dry ones that are intact, you mean like at a store where you buy dried sea stars?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how that's done. I suspect that they're collected live and they dry them.
Oh, and then they dry them out. Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah, so we're getting close to the surf grass here. You can see it looks like hair covering the rock. So this is super slippery. It's like kind of not safe to walk out there if you were in the tide pool. So yeah, you can see the zones here. All right, I'm gonna skip. Okay, and we have some cool barnacles here. So barnacles are also, I don't know if I talked about, these are crustaceans. Snails are mollusks. Let me just go back right here. And so these are really cool. They look dead, but it's actually an animal. Inside is where the animal lives. And it's got feeding tentacles or legs that'll stick out and filter feed. So they stay on the rock and they wait for the water to wash by, full of nutrients and microscopic food that they capture with their filtering feathery feet, and they bring it into their mouths and eat, and that's how they grow and survive. So these guys can't move. So what they do is they close up really tight, keep the moisture in. They can't be pried off except for a bird in the intertidal called the black oyster catcher, who is really good at flipping off the limpets off the rocks and slicing into mussels and eating all of these cool invertebrates. Yeah, you can see some of these new seaweed, little seaweeds growing in here. And here's a wider view of a tide pool. You can see a sea star right here, another one over here. Here's another nudibranch. He's a little bit out of the water. Oh, and here's a little video of what anemones do when you touch them. So these are feeding tentacles. They have all of these long tentacles that are covered with, they feel, to the human skin, it feels sticky. But what it's covered with are these stinging cells called nematocysts, and they can sting prey that come by. So if you were a little fish or little creature accidentally rubbing up against it, you're going to get stuck. See how it's sticking to my finger? And it moves the other tentacles towards it. And he's figured out that, no, that's not good to eat. And so he's sinking in. And they will close up if they're disturbed or out of water. But these are underwater, so they are still open and ready for business, ready to eat. And here, all that tarry stuff, that is a kind of seaweed. So it's one stage in a life cycle of a red algae. And another bat star. This one's all orange, just hanging onto the rock. And you can see the center of the anemone is where the stomach
Okay,
is.
so there's a hermit crab over here with a little snail on his back. And there's also a little shrimp right here. I don't know what it is really, but it looks like a shrimp, so that's what I'm calling it. And he's hiding it everywhere. He's so cute. He's moving around underneath the rocks. Come out, little guy.
So my daughter found these little creatures. And I think this is kind of an amphipod, the little guy, the shrimpy guy. And here's a hermit crab. It's a different kind of hermit crab from the ones we were seeing. It has red and white stripes on its legs. Super
like
small.
Another snail or a shell attached to him. Mm-hmm. And there's a little urchin spine right here too.
Yeah, so her thumb is on an urchin spine. So sea urchins, when they die, will drop all their spines and they get thrown into the sand. So this is, if you went and grabbed some of the sand down there, there would be little bits of the rock and little bits of broken shell. And so this hermit crab finds little tiny shells, like either baby snail shells or just the smaller snails, and uses them as a hiding spot. And this snail actually has another snail attached to it that's alive. So sometimes the really cool things in the tide pools are not big, but they can be really tiny. So here's another overhang. This is a really colorful one. Found different kinds of tunicates in all different colors. Here's an anemone.
Here's a huge, giant green anemone. It's probably about 6 inches wide. And we're under a boulder, looking underneath. Tunicates. Some light bulb tunicates.
So these are really cool animals. Tunicates, they're called light bulb tunicates because it looks like an upside down light bulb. So if this is the stalk of a light bulb and this is the bulb of a light bulb, it looks like it has two orange filaments in them. So these are the old incandescent light bulbs. And so they were named after light bulbs. And these are filter feeding organisms, colonial organisms. All of these are tunicates here. And they're covering the rock. I think this is a coralline algae, this pink stuff in the background. The red stuff is also algae. I'm not sure what this green stuff is, but there's all these different colors covering. So, going under a rock, the top of the rock, I think I'll show the top of the rock too, may not have very much noticeable on it.
What is all the orange stuff?
The what?
All the orange stuff?
This orange stuff is a colonial tunicate. So tunicates are filter feeding animals. They live in a colony, and they pump through the water and eat like sponges do. They eat microscopic particles that are in the water. And then I see there's a question. Eve is asking a question. Hold on, about the tunicate. Asparagus heads, yeah, the way that they're positioned. If you go online and look for light bulb tunicate, you'll see them. These are a little bit kind of flat and squished, but when they're underwater, when you're scuba diving, you can see them, and they're a little bit looser and they look more like light bulbs.
If you don't mind,
Worms,
I
those
did
are
have a
cool.
question.
Yes.
I was wondering, do you know which kinds of sea stars were being affected by the wasting disease that was
Yeah, I
happening?
think it was all of them, but particularly the Pisaster, the ochre sea star, and we'll see the ochre star, I think, in another couple of minutes. Oh my gosh, this looks like a face. Can you guys see the two eyes and the nose and like a mustache? These are tube worms. So it's hard to see the whole thing because it's encrusted with everything. So everything grows on top of everything. So you'll see this coralline algae is growing on the tube of the tube worm. This is one tube here. And then this is another tube, it kind of curves over here. Got green stuff growing on it. And then this is the opening of the worm. So the worm lives inside, and when it's underwater, it's going to open the opening. It's closed right now. It's going to open and come out. This feathery feeding parts come out, and it filter feeds. So there's a lot of filter feeders here in the intertidal. And so these guys will be, if you look online for pictures of tube worms, you'll see they're just really beautiful, and you just can't see the beauty of them when they're out of water, but you can still find them under rocks. Okay, I'm just going to take a look at the time here. 10:53. All right. So we have tube worms. Stuff underneath the rocks too. Oh, look at all these. Sorry, it's a little bumpy. It's hard to be leaning underneath a rock in the tide pool. These are another kind of anemone called aggregating anemones. These are hanging kind of underneath this rock, and they're all closed. Oh, I just noticed in this video is that these pink things right here on the edge, I think that might be a barnacle that is covered with this coralline algae. These things here with the holes. So I think the surface of the barnacle got covered with this. This is a type of algae that has calcium carbonate in its structure, and so it's really hard, and it's covered up these barnacles. So it's like every inch of space is used in the intertidal. Underneath this rock, and they're all closed. All right, so here is a bed of mussels, and this is a predatory animal, sea star. So this sea star, the ochre star, eats mussels, and you can see that it's hiding right at the edge of the mussel bed. So these mussels might be at risk of being eaten. So this guy was just resting in the crack in between two boulders. You can see it looks really muscly. This one looks like it might only have 4 arms. Not sure, it's just really bumpy. So you can see, let me go back to the sea star. All right. So you can see all of these white dots. These are spines. So the surface of the sea star. So this is what, if we were, if you were live and in the field, you could do that you can't do virtually, is put your hand on the sea star and touch it. Then you can feel that all of these white things are projections. They're spines that are sticking out of they're not pokey. They're just like little bumps, all like braille all around the sea star. And that's one characteristic that you can tell apart from other sea stars, is the ochre star. And they come in different colors. This one happens to be orange, but they come in kind of a burgundy, reddish color and purple. And sea urchins hiding in the little indentations in the rock. So here, all of this black stuff on top is mussels. All the tops of these rocks are covered with mussels. It's a mussel bed. So oftentimes we might find some birds called the black oyster catcher hanging out on there. Can anyone find the seal? I know some of you are naturalists out there, right? Yeah, I see Della. Della, did you spot it? Yeah, they blend in really well. Like, see how camouflaged they are? So harbor seals will haul out. That's just a terminology that means they just come out to rest. They rest on rocks usually in isolated areas. And so he's right here, one lone harbor seal. So I thought this was kind of pretty. This is a cluster of mussels. If you want to sketch this while I'm talking, feel free. You'll see that on the rock, there's this kind of gooey, dark stuff. If you were able to touch it, it's not sticky like tar. It's kind of tacky like dry, semi-dried seaweed. And it's a type of seaweed that's growing on the surface of the rock. And you can kind of see these two tan lines in the underneath part of the mussel, the threads that connect the mussel to the rock. And so these mussels have to be able to withstand the breaking waves. I'm gonna try to sketch while I'm talking. So I'm gonna make a bounding box so that I don't draw them all. That's just what I'm just gonna do for now. And then I'm gonna draw maybe a couple of mussels. So I'm just using the pencil and lightly kind of getting the general shape. I'm seeing like ovals, so I'm going to make these kind of ovals, these bivalves. They're two valves, like they have two parts, two halves of their body. And here's another one that's kind of coming out here. And just block out the general shape until you're happy with the proportions, and then start adding some detail. So I'm going to draw these, and then, well, I guess I'm going to draw a few more, but these ones in the background, I'm just going to leave like lightly in pencil. And I'm seeing some banding on there. So if you're living on a rock and you're hanging onto the rock, these mussels need to be flexible, because if they are staying really rigid and hanging on with like long, if they had, what am I trying to say, like straight attachments, the force of the waves could break them off. So they have these flexible attachments that are really, really strong, so that when they're on the rock, they can bend with the wave, so they can wiggle a little bit. And the big cluster, if you went up and touched this, you can kind of move them with your hand. They're going to be able to move, they have some give, and they move a little bit so they're not getting torn off. All right. And then these mussels are eaten by a lot of different creatures. One of them we talked about was the ochre star, the orange one at the end that we saw that had the white spines on it. They love to eat these guys, and they will get, what the sea star does is it holds the mussel with its arms stuck to it, and then it pries the mussel open, and all it needs to do is open the mussel just a little crack, those two halves of the shell, there's two shells attached, and then they can evert their stomach. So the sea star pushes its stomach into the mussel and starts to eat it from the inside out. It's kind of a weird way to eat, but there's all different kinds of ways that these animals are adapted to living in this environment. And what I'm noticing as I'm looking at this picture is there's a part of the shell, like it's not all smooth. Like it looks like this lower part, looks like the surface is bumpy, like cement, like a sidewalk. but this part looks shiny. See how the light is reflecting off of the mussel shell on this part, but it's not on this part. So it looks kind of matte, and I don't know if it's been eroded or if something's growing on it, but these are the kinds of things in a nature journal you would draw. You could say, like, I have a question. Is this shell eroding? Or is something growing on it? And I want to encourage you to keep asking questions, even if you don't think there's an answer for it, or if you think it's like, gosh, it's such a simple answer, why should I ask it? Well, you know, in the science world, scientists have to keep asking questions. And if they knew all the answers, they wouldn't be asking questions, right? We wouldn't be making discoveries if you knew all the answers. And I think that when we believe that we know all the answers, it's a trap. If we believe we know all the answers, then we have no room to grow and learn. So by nature journaling and practicing asking questions, we are opening ourselves up to learning more, right? And I'm also noticing on all of these shells, they look kind of shiny up on top. And there's radiating lines. There's lines that go up and down, and then radiating as well. So, and it's kind of hard to show the texture on here. So here's some things to do. So we use words, pictures, and numbers in our nature journal. And the reason why we use those three, well, there's a lot of reasons. One of the reasons is that not everything can be shown with words, right? Some things are just easier to show in a drawing or a diagram, right, rather than words. And some things are easier to show in numbers than in pictures or words. And then yet other things are easier to show in, let's see, words. What did I cover? You know what I'm talking about, right? So some things are just easier to show in one of those ways of information. And that's why when we combine all three, it makes it much richer. So like it was hard for me to convey the surface of this in a drawing. I'm going to put some like little bumps on here. It looks kind of like this. Right, and it's bumpy. Oh, wait, it looks like it might be eroded. Check this out. Look over here on this shell. See how it like indents in. So it looks like maybe this got chipped. And this is the under layer that's showing. So I might want to show that little bit of detail there. Anyone else noticing anything about these mussels as we're drawing?
The attachment threads.
Oh yeah, the byssal threads, right? Let's draw a couple of those in, and then we're gonna label it. What else do you see? Are you noticing these ridges?
Yeah.
Like there's two things going on. There's these like concentric rings of color, but I think they're also ridges in the same direction. And there's ridges that go lengthwise down the shell. So they're not smooth. So that's really interesting. So I want you to follow your curiosity. If you see something that's really curious, you know, go there, follow that, keep asking more questions about it. I'm going to see if I can draw the shell and do a cross section. So a cross section is kind of a cool way of showing the three-dimensional characteristic of anything, really. I've not done it with the mussel shell, but I'm going to give it a try. So I'm going to do A prime. All right, let's see. So if I were to cut into the shell this way, my cross section is going to look like, so, okay, so I'm imagining taking a knife and cutting that shell across. And what I think I'm going to see are ridges like that. So this is ridges lengthwise, right? This way, these ridges are coming this way. And there's also ridges going this way. So I might do a cross section this way. I'll call it B and B prime. All right, so if I imagine taking a knife and cutting it, it's gonna look something like, okay. So see how I'm putting lots of words and lines and questions on my page? This becomes more of the process of my thoughts coming onto paper. That's what nature journaling is about. It can be just a pretty picture of the mussel. I could do that maybe on another page. I just am really taken by the colors on this mussel. So maybe on another page, I might just draw with adding just, you know, more accurate color. But for this particular page, I'm kind of happy with, you know, just asking questions and wondering. And I know that these animals are filter feeders. So they're closed right now, but when they open, they'll look a little bit different. And you can ask all kinds of questions, you know, wondering about, you know, maybe the byssal threads, like what are they made out of? How do they make them? How do they attach? Can they reattach somewhere else? You know, how fast do they grow? What's the reason? Why do they have these ridges? Like what's up with this like eroded part of the lower part of the shell? Why is the lower part eroded? Is the lower part older? Is that why? You know, so all of those questions that come through your mind, put it onto the page. And when you do that, more questions will arise and you'll start to get more curious. And that's when like the mysteries of nature will unfold. Okay, so just like another 10 seconds to wrap up what we're doing, because the tide is coming back and we're going to need to be on our way. All right, there's another sea star. And look at the surface of this rock. Isn't that funny that they're clusters of mussels and not a whole bed? I wonder why. Now this is really cool. Look at those clusters. Did someone come through and eat them? Right, so these questions are what you could put in your nature journal. You could draw this picture. This would be a really great page for your nature journal, or even like a little square, like a half page of your journal where you're showing that there's lots of rock and the mussels are clustered in small clumps. Oh, so a diagram, you could do like this. Like let's say this is the rock, or maybe I'm gonna draw the rock. I'm gonna make it a big round. This is the rock. And I'm just showing the distribution of the animals that I'm seeing. Maybe I'm gonna draw maybe some seaweed over here. And then I see, you know, a cluster here. And I see a cluster here. I'm sorry, I'm gonna erase this box that's in the way. And there's a cluster over here. And a cluster down here. And then maybe I'm gonna measure this. Like if I have a measure tool and I'll say this is 3 feet wide. This rock is 3 feet wide. And I see these clusters clusters of mussels? Like, why isn't it all over like the other area, right? Those are good questions too. And then when I look closely, I see, wait, there's other things there. This is not just rock. I'm seeing look, do you guys see these limpets? These limpets are everywhere. So maybe I'll color code. So the purpose of this picture is not to make it like an accurate drawing. It's to show the distribution. So maybe I'm going to take a color code it. I'm going to color code the mussels. Yikes, it's kind of dark, isn't it? I'm going to color code the mussels, and I'm going to color them blue. So to show that these are my mussels, mussel clusters. All right. Oops, I should check. Can you see my my notebook? Sorry. All right, so mussel clusters, and then I might maybe these limpets I'll do in another color. So maybe the limpets will be purple. And then I'm going to make a little legend here. So this is limpets. These are the mussels. Right, so that's one way that you can show, like, oh, look at that. That rock is really interesting. It has mussels clumped that way. But the rock next to it is like fully covered with mussels on top. Another rock has a mussel bed. And I'm showing really quickly with color coding, I can do this. Oh my gosh, there's all these mussels on top. And my question might be, why? Right? And if I don't know enough about mussels, maybe I don't know what question to ask. But the first thing that came in mind is like, these are different. That and this is different. Are they the same kind of mussel? Do they like this kind of rock better? I'm going to write these down. Do they like this kind of rock better? Or maybe is it in deeper water? Or maybe are there less predators? Right? See how these questions can go kind of crazy. And so you can just go on. Like I could have asked questions about these. Oh, they're not all limpets. There's barnacles on there too. Huh. So I could add another color, right? And say, okay, here's a barnacle. I see one right there. Another big one here. All right, I only see, oh, and another one here. And then maybe I'm going to have another color here, and this is barnacle. And barnacle will be a different color. I'm gonna make it, I'll make it pink. Pink barnacle, right there. All right, so that's showing the distribution. Oh yeah, here's a close-up. See, there's these different kinds of barnacles right here. And they are algae eaters. So they're scraping the rock for microscopic algae. And there is a type of barnacle called the owl limpet. Sorry, not barnacle, I meant limpet. Barnacles don't move, limpets move. These guys are algae eaters, and they move around. So if I was able to go out with you and look at this rock underwater, these limpets will move. They will go to different places, but when the tide goes out and it's high tide, they come back to the same spot. This is their home. and they make a home scar. So they wiggle their shell around and cut out a shape of the rock that fits their shell, and that's their home scar. And they come back to that spot and they hunker down when the tide is going out. And then when the tide comes back in, then they get up, move around, and start grazing again. They're just really fascinating creatures. Okay, here's a ficus. I called it a ficus forest, a fucus forest. So this is a type of seaweed. Looks kind of rubbery. And look at the base though. Okay, I'm gonna stop here. It doesn't look like a tree. So this is a cool, it reminds me of, right? If we were to sit here in front of this rock and draw it, it looks like a spooky forest. So, you know, maybe I might call it the spooky forest and draw a little square of maybe just this one seaweed that's coming out. And then notice that it has a trunk like a tree does, but it doesn't have roots like trees do. Seaweeds will just attach to a rock. It's a hold fast, and they use it to attach to the rock. There's no nutrients that it gets from the rocks. All the nutrients it gets are from what we think of as the leaves, right? These fronds. And so it's, you know, similar. So you could write, you know, it reminds me of an old tree. You know, it reminds me of branches on a tree. It reminds me of, you know, whatever. And though that way, when you do that, you're making connections and the neurons are firing in your brain, and you're going to be learning this stuff and remembering this stuff way better. Yeah, you can see when I hold it up. And then creatures hiding at the base of seaweeds is a really good spot to look for interesting things. And different kinds of seaweeds, all different colors. All right, we're coming back to the shore and seeing what the beach looks like. It is made up of whatever the shoreline is. So lots of little pieces of granite and mussels. Do you see all of these mussels? Tons of mussels. The black turban snails. So here's a still life here of some shells. You can come back to this video and, you know, maybe you want to draw these shells and try to identify what they are. And, you know, just notice the color. Oh, here's byssal threads on a mussel over here. So this poor little guy got ripped off of the rock. He couldn't hang on. This is the sea urchin. So the middle of the sea urchin, after the spines have fallen off, is called the test. This is the skeleton. And so this has really beautiful radiating lines in it to show their symmetry. They have 5-part symmetry, just like sea stars. Here's a little abalone shell, some sea glass, barnacles, some other snails. So looking at the beach gives you an idea of what might be underwater. So a sandy beach with fine sand is going to have a different habitat. All right, so here's a picture of the map of where we walked. So if you wanted to just, you know, sketch that out, you can, or you don't have to, but it's kind of a cool view from above. All right, so with that, I'm going to stop that share. And I'm going to change my video. So I would love to hear, I think we have some time to do a few sharings. Let me just get my camera back. Okay. All right, does anyone want to share what they were able to sketch today? No? Okay, wait, hold on. Evea wants to. I'm going to spotlight Evea. Thank you. All right. Good morning.
Good morning. So, I mean, they weren't like you said, they weren't amazing, but what I liked about this was that it gave quick sketches,
Yes.
which is going to be super useful later. So trying to quick sketch the
Nice.
environment realized that there was something that I need to learn later, which is about how to quickly like sketch environments that are completely made out of smaller rocks.
Yeah.
Couldn't remember all of the colors, so it reminded me
Yeah.
to please write it down later.
Yeah.
Wrote some questions, had some fun questions. And then when I can't draw something quickly and I know it's about to leave fast, I know that I won't necessarily remember the colors, but I use a pen like this because it looks like almost a shadowy gray, just to sketch the outlines of things so that I can quickly remember, you know, the limpet looked a bit like a sunflower to me
Great.
with in the middle. And then, or like with the crab, I sketched the positioning of the legs. I reminded myself, like you said, when you sometimes have to put things in your head to remember,
Yep.
I'm reminding myself that there was a darker portion of darker gold in the center that I tried to paint, but that got washed out. And then also tons of little dots.
Yeah.
So I'll probably put those in later with a gel pen.
Yes.
And then
Yeah.
putting tons of notes about color.
Oh, that's
It was more
great. See,
complicated.
so these are so great, and I think that when we do these quick gesture sketches, it will improve our drawing. So I want to encourage everyone to, if you can, stick around for the next 20 minutes while we're talking about what each of us saw, because this is not about showing off our drawings. It's about, you know, come to this with the intention of you know, learning how you can look at nature in a different way. Like if you saw something in the way that Evea drew, you know, sketch something, you know, make a note of it and say, ah, I like that, right? This is about sharing. We are creating our nature journals together, right? We're learning together. And so something that you see, maybe someone else didn't see. So, you know, and just come with, if you feel like you want to share, feel free. If you don't want to, that's totally okay too. But I want you to know that when you are sharing what you're drawing in this moment today, the nature journal you are today, there's nothing to be fearful about. We're here in the same place, right? Many of us have a fear of like, okay, I don't think my drawing's good enough. But, you know, we really focus on growth mindset here, right? We can all learn and grow and expand our knowledge. So with everyone who shares. Okay, does anyone else want to share? Ray, do you want to show us what you have and what you saw today?
Yeah.
So Ray is in the UK, joining us again.
Wait, so start with this is that black starfish and sea slug.
Yeah.
And here's the key. I forgot to write it.
Oh,
Anyways.
good.
Those are the muscles and the cross section. Yes, and that's the bay.
Uh-huh. Oh, wow.
Those the crabs and the title. And I've made a place for the notes.
Yeah.
And
It's on the size here.
yes, and I've also shown the size.
Oh, with the finger. Perfect.
Cool.
Yeah. So sometimes, you know, we don't have a ruler with us, but we know how big our finger is. So if you put a picture of your finger in it, then it gives everybody a sense of how small or how big something is. And look at the landscape too. You know, the quick gesture sketches that you've done are just really, yeah, there you go. And so what I was saying is like your sketches, all of you, they don't have to look like the photograph. Okay. That's not the intention. The intention is, are we looking at nature? And what are we seeing? Like, you know, make our eyes go around all of those edges of the snail and the crab and put it onto the page. Yeah, this is great. This is pencil miles for everybody, right? Awesome. And then later when you have time, if you wanted to watch the video and do a close-up of something with more color and more time, that's totally fine. So yeah, thank you, Ray.
Thank you.
All right, is there anyone else who would like, oh, Connie, I see. Let me find Connie. Connie, are you wearing a red shirt? Is that you? Okay. You
Yes.
can unmute yourself. Oh, there you are. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Connie. So you're new here today.
I am new here today. I
Welcome.
found it fascinating. I'm always marveled at that small detail that we just walk over. I mean, so many of us just are out for a pace walk and we just don't see the small things that are created. So here's mine. I do a lot of just urban sketching. But
Great.
the thing that would frustrate me is if you weren't there, I wouldn't know the names of any of these things. They'd just be shapes, and
Yes.
I mean, I know some, but just be shapes. And so, but it creates for me, a whole memory experience, a whole a feeling of being there.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'd have to imagine the sounds, but I spend enough time around water. Right now, with the situation, I'm actually got caught staying with my son in Pasadena, so I am in California. But it was a lot of fun and a lot of detail, but and the information is just very educational. Love the morning.
Connie, where are you from?
I live in Orlando, Florida.
Okay.
But my son lives in Pasadena.
Okay,
So
great.
but I got caught out here when they did the shutdown, and I'm still here.
So glad to have you join us. Yeah, you can join us anytime. We do this on Sundays. We have, different formats. Today is a new one. I just thought we'd do a field trip. Yeah. We usually do sketching in our own nature, so we get to learn from everybody else. But this was kind of something fun. I'm a marine biologist, so this is just really my passion. And when we're in person, right? If you guys can come out in person, we can explore tide pools together. So
you have mentioned several times that we could rewatch the tape.
Oh, yes. So I will, if you are on my newsletter, I will send it in there. If not, I will post it in the Monterey Bay Nature Journal Club Facebook page.
Okay.
Or if you want to be on the newsletter, just go to sparkinnature.com and you can sign up there. And if you're not already signed up, and then I will let you know where that will be. So yeah, this is great. So you have a lot of quick sketching, so you have practice with that. So that's awesome. Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for letting me join.
Of course. All right. Is there anyone else who would like to share?
Could I share mine?
Who is that?
Christina and Matthew.
Christina and Matthew, yes. And then Libby can go after. Yeah, welcome.
Thanks. So, this is my first time doing it. I really enjoyed it. I only took a few quick sketches without any color, and then afterwards, I think I'll go over them and do them again more perfectly with much more detail. For example, the crab, maybe I try and do it again in watercolors.
Yep.
And I try and do the muscles with more detail.
Wow. Yeah, you were actually able to get a lot of sketches done in our fast virtual field trip. So that's great. And look at all those questions. Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Where did you hear about our group?
My mom heard about it on Facebook.
Oh, cool. I'm glad that you're here. Yeah, please join us again. All right. And I think who was it next? Libby. I'm trying to find Libby. Libby, you can unmute and start so I can find you. Oh, there you are. Okay, hold on. Spotlight. Okay, we see you.
Thank you for hosting the field trip. It was so much fun.
Yeah.
And I got quite a few sketches in. I did the sea anemones. They just really fascinated me. And I liked the crab a lot. That was very fun. And doing that quickly. And then I really enjoyed the mussels and the colors that we saw with those. So that was just a lot of fun. I don't know if you guys can.
Yeah, we can see it. Yeah.
So it was so much fun. And
oh, great.
I loved the drawing of the two different places that you did. And so I took a lot of notes there.
Yeah.
So
nice. Thank you. I'm glad it worked out. Yeah. All right, let's see. I'm going to see if there's anyone else. And if anyone is new and you're not sure, after today that like you want to get a little bit more instruction on how to do your nature journal. I have small group classes that are online on Zoom like this, but with just 5 or 6 people, and that starts July 8th. So if you're interested, you can contact me or check my website, and you'll learn more about how to jump in on that. It'll jumpstart your nature journaling. There's lots of folks here that have taken it that have really great feedback on really how your nature journaling can be, you can build your confidence in nature journaling.
I'm cool.
Brenda.
That's me, Mike Helm.
Mike, okay.
So I did a lot of random stuff.
Yeah.
Bird wants to talk to. I really like those, I guess they're California mussels.
Yes, they are. Yeah.
And up here in the Bay Area, the rails love them.
Aha.
Rails are always raiding those.
Yeah.
And the tunicate, that's what I remember of it.
Yes.
I love the tunicates. You guys seem to have different tunicates that we find on the north side of the San Francisco Bay. The ones I see look like lumps of fat, like jello.
Yeah.
Jello.
Mike, there's all different kinds. Yeah, there's all different kinds. And there are more in Monterey Bay that was just what we saw under one rock. Yeah. So there's like, solitary tunicates, there's, the stalked ones, there's the gooey ones, there's sponges that look similar. So yeah, if you do any scuba diving, you'll see that there's a ton of diversity in the water here near the shore.
We gotta come down and see yours.
Yeah, yes. Come join us.
Life permits it once again.
Exactly. And, I'm looking forward to doing some in-person ones, maybe with, proper physical distancing. So if anyone's interested, contact me and we can figure out plan something when the time is right. Yeah. Mike, thanks for joining us.
Oh, can I go?
Yeah, hold on one second. I'm going to find who you are. Who is this? Kathy. Okay. Hi. Kathy. Yes.
Hi. I'm so excited to be a part of this class. I just wanted to thank you so much. It was so wonderful.
Sure.
I don't know if you can see this.
Yep.
I didn't get so much data as I did illustrating. I'm more of this is new to me doing the journaling, but I'll probably go over and ink these out, the pencil, so that you can see it better.
Yeah.
And maybe add some darker ink lines and more detail in this with some lines.
Yeah.
This is just my quick little crab in my nudibranch real quickly. And wow. I really, really loved the mussels. I'm trying to realize that less is more, because I want to do everything in detail and take the time, but I really like the quickness of less is more.
Yes.
And I'm really super excited to watch the video again, because the abundance of different seaweeds was just astounding.
Yeah.
And I just think that a painting with all the beautiful colors and shapes of seaweeds, that really excites me. So I'm really looking to going back and and
Kathy,
so
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'm in San Diego, but God, this just made me so want to come up to Monterey and do this in person, because we don't get the abundance of shells like you do. And it's just, I grew up in New England and Maine, and this is probably more similar in life, in the intertidal zone that I'm used to. So I was very excited about this.
Oh. I'm so glad that you're here.
Join your group and
and keep coming back. And
this is as far as I got, and I'll probably do a lot more.
Oh, that's great, Kathy. I love the use of watercolor and just really the simple lines. And like you said, less is more. Like the mussels are perfect just the way they are. Even the first page, that is perfect. You don't have to put more detail in unless you want to.
Well, I didn't get this cypress blowing in the wind.
Yeah. Or what you could do is do a zoom in. So these are techniques that we go over in my classes. is zooming in and doing a close-up of a cypress, right? So doing a tiny landscape and zooming into the cypress. So there's a lot of different ways, techniques that you can use to enhance your nature journaling. But looks like you've got a great page started with lots of words. And yeah, if you want to look at the video again and fill things out, that's awesome.
Yeah, I really want to go back and just do the seaweeds. They were just so beautiful and so amazing.
Yeah, they are. Thanks for being here. Yeah. And does anyone else want to go? Oh, it's Ken and Cindy. Let's get you, Ken and Cindy. Hi.
Good to see you.
Nice to see you. You're at Mom's.
Yeah, I'm at my mom's.
Yeah.
I went out with Melinda and helped shoot a few things.
Yes, thank you, Cindy.
I got a start of it anyway. Yeah. I left a lot of room for the seaweeds and some other journaling. So you notice I've gone to the bigger format. Yay!
Yay!
Those are just a few. And I like the idea of your border boxes because I'm boxes. So that was my sketch.
You know, you could even save that right-hand side for all of your questions. I notice, I wonder, right? And then just do the pictures on one side. That's so cool.
Exactly. And then I think Ken has something quick to share.
Yeah, I just did minimal today. It was just pencil and paper.
Yep.
And just a few different things. But it was the size of my hand, and I didn't do much more than that.
Right. Yes. So nice that you guys were here. Thank you for sharing.
Good to see you.
All right. So we might have one more if someone has a burning desire to share their page today in the group.
Could is it okay if I share my brother's?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Let me find your screen again. Was that Christina and Matthew, right? Yeah. Okay, so this is Matthew's page.
Yes. So he did a couple of sketches.
Yeah. Oh, Matthew, look at that. Look at the shadow and all the colors on that hermit crab shell.
Now, my brother did take quite a lot of notes, so kind of like in a science class.
Yes.
Where he wrote down notes.
Oh my gosh.
I think maybe he'll benefit quite a lot from your classes on how to do quick sketches and stuff.
Yeah.
You won't be able to do that in the field and stuff like that.
So, how old is Matthew?
Matthew is 11.
Is 11. Okay. And how old are you, Christina?
I'm 14.
14. Okay. All right. I'm going to have some nature journaling classes for younger people too. So if you guys are interested, we can have a class with just people your age, and we can do that together. So keep watching my website or join the Monterey Bay Nature Journal Club Facebook page to find out about that. Awesome. Thank you so much for showing, Matthew. Yeah, having all those notes and the pictures together is going to help you remember things. And that's what I learned in school, is drawing little sketches and writing things down really helps your brain. All right. Okay, Ray, so one last comment. So Ray, did you have something to share?
Yes, he wants to share.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, hi, Arpin.
Hi, how are you?
Good, nice to see you.
Nice to see you. So I didn't do many as Ray did, so just a few. So I did the hermit crab and the shore crab.
Oh my
gosh. But this was the fastest sketch I ever did.
Wow.
So
oh my gosh, Ray, I can see the shading and the light on there. That's awesome. Yeah, doesn't it feel good to do these quick sketches, guys? It's really freeing.
Yeah, it is.
Awesome.
And it's important to take a step back and not go into the details, but the details come by itself. That's quite a different thing.
Yeah.
So I didn't have any plan, but it turned out to be quite satisfying.
Yeah, and I like how with the darker ones in front and then the lighter ones in the back to give it a sense of depth. So yeah, you've got lots of really great techniques going on there. Thank you. Oh my gosh, it's been so fun to see everyone share. I hope that everyone enjoyed this field trip today and got some sketching and maybe got some tips on what you can put in your nature journal. There's a whole lot. There's a whole lot more of tips that you can learn, but really just getting out there and doing it is really the best way to learn. So grabbing your journal and your pencil, drawing what you see, asking lots of questions, being curious, write down what it reminds you of. Join us on Sundays. If you want to, some more instruction, contact me. And this is, one step on this journey for you. So I'm just really excited. And if you are interested and are able to, want to send me a tip by donation, you can feel free to do that. It would be super helpful to help me keep offering these opportunities so that everyone can take part. And come and check out the website. I have some blog posts on there. I'm doing more activity on my website and also on Facebook. So you can find me there, and we will see you next Sunday. Hopefully some of you will come back. Yeah, and keep journaling and post your pictures if you feel comfortable on the Monterey Bay Nature Journal Club Facebook page so that we can all share and give you some really positive, good feedback. All right. Thank you so much for being here. Yeah. Hi, Matthew. We'll see you next time. Bye, Christina. Bye, Ray. Bye,
Thank you
Lisa.
so very much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye, Holly, Della. Oh, Betty's here too. Bye, Betty. Hi, Myra.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Great. Bye, Connie. We'll see you next time. Bye, Chris.
Okay.
Ivea. Yeah, good to see you. You had lots of good questions.
Bye.
Bye, Ray. Have a good evening. We'll see you next time.
Bye.